1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. Oh, hi, welcome. I'm just counting how long the Kia EV9 is. It's over 5 meters long. It's the biggest car they've made, and we're here in just outside Nice to have a look at the car today and take it for a drive. So welcome to Nobby on Cars. What do you need to know about the car in terms of Ireland? Well, it starts from €77,500 for an Earth. This is a GT line version, which is an extra, let's call it €8,000. You can get it in all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive. It has a 99.8 kilowatt hour usable battery that should be good for a range of up to 560 odd kilometers, so Kia say. But I'll be the judge of that later on in the video. So let's just have a little look around, and welcome if you've just found the channel because of this video. It's good to have you on board. You might consider subscribing, not yet, but if you think the video is good, maybe later on. So when it comes to technology, this car is fairly out there at the moment. It has vehicle to load, where you can charge other devices from your battery. It also has vehicle to building and vehicle to grid capabilities. The idea being that in certain countries where you can sell back your energy, if you're sitting with this car outside with a full battery and you know you're not going to use it for that day, why not use it as something that you can actually make money from and sell back to your energy provider? So the EV9 has this capability. When it comes to tech on board, frontal collision is standard on all the vehicles. It has surround sensors for absolutely every maneuver you might encounter as a driver, cameras with 360 overviews, and that's the difference, I suppose, for the Irish spec. The Earth car we're getting is still really high spec. Now, you can only get the Earth in 7-seater, but if you go for the GT line, you can opt for 6, no extra charge, whether you want 6 or 7 seats. But if you get the Earth version, it's only available in a 7-seater. It's a very broad car, as you can see. It's very tall. This is kind of the matte finish. There's quite a few colours for the Irish market. One thing I do wonder about is this high gloss around the vehicle. With car washes and stuff like that, how will that stand up to the test of time? You know, it's perfect at the moment because it's a brand new car, but I just wonder, you know, little fine hairline scrapes and stuff like that. 19-inch wheels are the standard wheels that we'll get on the Earth, rising to 21-inch. So basically, aesthetically, some of the differences between the Earth and the GT line, one of the big points is the larger wheels. So let's jump around towards the rear of the car now, check out the boot and just see. I mean, you would assume with such a long car, it's going to have a big boot, right? Little camera in there that is just nicely tucked away, and even with the third row of seats, we still have a very usable boot. You know, they've kindly provided us with context sort of size this space, which would easily get maybe a week's shopping in here. There's all kinds of buttons for opening your rear seats, dropping things like this. It all just works beautifully and saves you the hassle of going around and having to do it yourself, which is cool. Under here we have a floor which will take the parcel cover. Depending on markets you're in, you'll have high-vis jackets and things like that should you break down. But of course it has Kia's 7-year warranty, so that won't happen anyway. So good space. Obviously, if you're not going to use these extra seats, then you have a massive boot with plenty of space for just, you know, day-to-day life. But I like in that extra row, they've included USB-C charging points. There's drinks holders. You're going to get some air into that space because a lot of 7-seaters and 6-seaters in this case, down the back, it can get a bit stuffy. But again, that's not going to happen in this car. So a massive boot if you're not always using the extra row of seats. Charging speeds. This car has 800-volt charging. So again, it's quite future-proof in that sense. If you get the fastest charging physical charger into this car, you'll get over 250 kilometers in just a few minutes. And obviously your AC and DC charging options are on this side of the car. It also has a visual display to let you know how full the battery is and if it's charging, because sometimes you just can't be sure. Sometimes you've got green lights, sometimes you've got red lights, but it's obviously mechanically, electrically operated for the charging port as well. A digital key will also be an option that you can set up with the car, so you can use your phone to get in and out of the vehicle, which will again just make life convenient if you're trying to carry things and people and all that stuff. You want to know what it's like inside? Let's go and take a little look. Starting with the front of the cabin, you're instantly surrounded by lots and lots of more tech. For example, there's a fingerprint scanner here, so if you wanted to save your particular seat settings and where the adjustable steering wheel and steering column is, you can basically save your preference in there. And if you look around, obviously these are the optional camera style mirrors. You know, they're not standard on the car and possibly very expensive to replace if somebody hits off them. But again, we've seen these in cars like Audi, and now Kia providing it as an option in the EV9. Your massaging seats and air-cooled seats, again, these are all going to be standard in the front and second row of the car, starting with the Earth model. The ventilated seats, really, really quiet. You barely know they're on, apart from the fact that you have that nice cooling effect. And this screen wraps around, which gives you obviously your instrument displays here. So this kind of center screen here is new and different, and it's your shortcuts to your climate controller always sitting there looking at you. So while there's not a huge amount of buttons, and these are haptic buttons, the kind of stuff that you're regularly going to want to quickly access remain here. And you have the wide version of the screen in this vehicle, so sat nav can be split depending on what else you want here. So it's like a widget, so you can have your media source here at the same time going on. Head-up display also will come as standard on all cars. And the storage options, well, there's many. So we have space here. You might chuck your key down here, and it's carpeted just to stop things rattling around. Charging for a wireless device goes here. Again, further shortcut buttons to things like the reversing camera, 360 overview. Certainly in Ireland, when you press that button, you won't see a beautiful swimming pool and some mountains in the background, but you get the idea of it. Plenty of options for charging as well, USB-C here, and a great big size bin down here as well. So very spacious, very wide. Although it's such a tall car and the head height is really generous in it, you're kind of squatted down in the seating position. So it's like, it is absolutely an SUV, but you kind of feel like you're kind of lower down at one with the car, which is nice. If you get the glass roof, you have a split, so between the front and the back. So if you just want light in the front, maybe as the driver and passenger, the rear blind is adjustable with the button, and you just quickly close and open this one here. Some models also will have a digital projection for the rear view mirror, so that camera on the back window, that's what that is for. It's also housed in a fairly extensive plastic housing to hold the rain sensor and part of the camera structure here. And I'll explain a bit more in driving, but there has been times today with traffic lights and stuff that just get a little bit restricted because that is such a big space in the center of the windscreen, but very wide visibility all around. The seats are really comfortable. If you're charging, you can basically recline the seat back or bring it forward or whatever you want to do it, and you'll see it just move by itself now. The leg extenders rises up, and the idea is you can have a little rest. Now you can do that as a passenger as you're driving, but also if you're charging and you're going to be there for half an hour, why not get a bit of shut-eye? That's the idea there. A lot of different plastics, different textures. It does feel really nice up here, and things are soft and they're squishy, and there's high polish in lots of areas. It's all the one colour essentially. You just wonder, would a sort of a half cream, would it work? I'm not too sure, but it's very dark and kind of cool looking inside here, but all the one colour with just many different textures. If you go for the 6-seater option, well, it's obviously even more spacious in here. You've got these two private jet style seats. They have adjustable armrests that just click into exact specific angles for you, whatever's comfortable. If you have young kids, you have these blinds to unclip. There we go. So that's easy most of the time. I might just leave it down. Getting in and out of the vehicle, these are really cool. So if you're going to use this car for someone who might have reduced mobility, these are going to be really helpful. But equally for small kids, it's quite a tall vehicle. So if you've got, you know, kids 3 to maybe 6 years of age, this will help them get in and out. There is the option here of a lovely tray table that comes out here. You might be able to rest a laptop on this if you were working, or a tablet, or I don't know, trying to have your lunch. It's a nice little addition to have. Good storage at the back of the seats here, and you can see what's behind here. So if you were to hide maybe a tablet or an iPad mini or something in here because you weren't in the vehicle, you could safely tuck that away. Now the seats have, much like kind of front driver and passenger seats, you can adjust how much legroom you want. If you want to give the third row occupants a bit more knee room, and you bring this up, you still actually have a nice bit of space here for you, so no one is going to end up too squished. Such a large car, it's lovely that they have put things like air vents here just over your head. You get your own individual climate control for the back, so it's like multi-zone climate, and you can keep yourself toasty or cool, whatever you want to do. You can't control the sunblind. The driver or front passenger will have to do that for you. But the big question is, as an adult, can you get in the back and live with it on a journey? Let's find out now. Just before I show you that extra row, so all 4 seats in the 6-seater will get ISOFIX. Again, on the issue of mobility, or just with smaller kids, again, you might have over the years had to buy seats that rotate and swivel to get kids in and out. You don't need to do that in this car because there's a lever down here, a bit like a captain's chair. You can just switch it around, and just for your back, for whatever, it will make it easier to get people in and out of the vehicle. Even in this third row, there's still plenty of head height. It does eat in now, so the difference between the glass roof and the roof lining is evident. There's lovely softness to this. You shouldn't be bumping your head off it, but if you were to, it's nice and soft. Further air vents right over your head. So again, in past cars, I remember say a Tarraco, for example, the row at the back with small kids on a warm summer's day, it would not be a good place to be. So the aircon that's individually adjustable is a nice addition. I don't have this middle row totally up against the front driver's seat, and as you can see, there's still really good leg room and knee room. There is a little bit of space for your feet to go into the seats as well, so it's not particularly cramped. It does depend on how much flexibility you'll have with those middle passengers. If they're also fully grown adults, they're going to want these seats back. But again, if you have a bit of flexibility on your different occupants of the vehicle, if some are bigger and smaller and younger and older, you might be able to make it work. But certainly it's not the most cramped 7-seater I've ever been into. And the addition of the air and stuff will further make the journey a bit more comfortable. And if they get thirsty, there's space for drinks back here, and they can also charge their devices with USB-C charging back here. Don't forget, as we mentioned earlier on in the video, you still have a pretty usable boot with this extra row in use. So I think it's pretty good. I'd like to spend more time, and I will do that when I'm driving the car in a few weeks in Ireland, just to get a proper idea of what it's like to be an adult back here. But it looks like it's pretty decent. This is the bit that I've been waiting to be able to tell you about, driving of the EV9 and what's it like. Well, there's no getting away from the fact that this is a 2-meter wide car, so it really does feel big. Intimidating, I'd imagine, as you're approaching the vehicle from, you know, another car's perspective. And like earlier on today, we started off closer to Nice. We're in Cannes now, pretty much, and the roads were just so narrow, and it was like a little bit uncomfortable driving it. That's kind of how I felt. It was just so wide. Roads here are a bit better. So you have rear-wheel drive with just over 200 brake horsepower, and the all-wheel drive GT line version is the one that has a far higher dual motor output. Same performance output on both front and rear axle, and obviously a lot more grip, and quite a big jump in brake horsepower for the extra 8,000 or so euro. And I do wonder, is a 200 brake horsepower 7-seater, if you're going to use the 7 seats regularly, is that enough power in a car this size? Because it is heavy. And my God, you feel how heavy it is. Like on these twisty roads, I'm not going particularly fast, but if you are to push the vehicle on, like, it's I don't know about car sick or whatever, but you just feel the weight of it shift around because it's just massive. It's massive. Now it is really, really quiet at lower speeds. Motorways, there's a bit of noise from the mirrors. Those digital mirrors would probably be more aerodynamically suitable, but they're going to be an expensive option. But just across the windscreen, you do hear it's a bit of an air whistle at times. There's lots of driver safety aids. You've got frontal collision avoidance, rear cross traffic. You've got cameras that will tell you every angle, help you with parking. There's a lot of tech there, but it also has a driver monitor. You can turn these safety aids off. You can turn off the bong that goes off every time you go a kilometre over the speed limit. The question though for down the road will be, will insurance companies in time make sure you leave these things on? And if they do, it would kind of get annoying, because the beep particularly, whatever about driver monitoring, which in fairness, if you even take your eyes off straight ahead to look at a screen or to briefly chat to your passenger like that, it will warn you that you're not paying attention. So cars are getting really, really sophisticated now in terms of monitoring. Lane departure is quite severe in the car. You may or may not want to turn that off. You have blind spot, the sensors around which are all projected onto the head-up display. So if you were to ever try and make a maneuver on the road and veer into another car and that, the car pretty much won't let you do it, thankfully. Now this dual-moded version of the car, I mean, it's never neck-snapping quick, but there is enough of a shove. And to be honest with you, and I know I keep coming back to it, but just the sheer mass of this car, you don't really want to be ploughing along in it, because it's more of a cruiser, it really is. Now, in this mostly downhill so far test drive, it's doing 10 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is really, really good. But actually, in more longer driving earlier on today, it was about 18 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And on the motorway, it was 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is actually pretty thirsty, in fairness. That's kind of 100 kilometers now, and yeah, you just, as you approach a corner, you can't help but want to press the brake. It's just a natural reaction. The brakes are very good at it, I will say that, and you know, you'd want that confidence in a vehicle of this size. I mean, if you do overdo it coming towards a bend and stuff, your natural reaction is to plant it, because it feels unnaturally heavy as you hurtle towards a corner. It's not really that kind of car. You know, if you do chuck it around, people down the back row, they're not going to feel too good in their tummies, I'd imagine. You know, there's a lot of weight changing depending on what way you're shifting. Surrounded everywhere by recycled materials, including the headrests, which, as far as I know, are recycled fishing nets. But when you sit against them, if you ever have those kind of lumber chairs in an office environment that help your back, it's the same type of material here. And if you weren't to look at it, you'd think it was a cushion behind your head. So it actually makes for a very, very comfortable situation, just gently. If you're doing longer journeys, I think you'd actually find it quite soothing. Before you buy one of these cars, if your route is regularly down rural roads in Ireland, and you're in a situation where you have to pull into a bit of a grass verge and let another vehicle past you, this car could drive you mad, because you will be jamming on the brakes, trying to edge past. You could compare it to something like the XC90 from Volvo. It's a similar size. I don't know if it's just the design of the car makes you think it's kind of boxier, but some of the more narrow roads today in Nice, I just was a bit wary. I was constantly checking my mirror, going, am I over? Am I okay on that side? And it's another thing to be worrying about when you're trying to drive a vehicle. It's very, very smooth, even on the 21-inch alloys. These are not bad roads, in fairness, here in France, but the Earth standard model will have 19s as standard, so probably even more comfort in the ride there. It's a good driving position. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, you're not sitting that high, although there's absolutely tons of head height up there. I think there's a decent enough-ish combination of physical buttons, albeit haptic ones in some cases, versus the screen. Steering wheel is actually quite large. Again, is that for the American market? I think compared to what our little European wheels are, it does feel quite large in the hands. It's very light steering though, which again helps you maneuver a car like this. I do wonder, would a little bit of rear steering help maneuver this car as well? We had to do a couple of 12-point turns today in it, just trying to get back on track when we got lost. And yeah, it is a very, very big bus, and it's definitely one that if I was you and I'm considering it, I'd be asking for a 24-hour test drive just to make sure everyone who's going to be driving it is happy, because there's a lot of money to spend if you're a little bit uncomfortable driving a car of this size. And it's not often you've got to say that in a car review, but I think it's a valid point, you know, making sure everybody's happy with the size of the car after spending all that money. Nobody wants to be crying into their cornflakes saying, I don't want to do the school run, it's too intimidating. It's a big bus. Anyway, time now for my summary of the all-new Kia EV9. There is no doubt this is a really, really large vehicle, and the roads here in France, particularly up to where we're filming today, were really, really tight, and you're kind of getting those large SUV tut-tut disapproval looks from other motors coming towards you. Now, the roads in Ireland are, well, it depends where you are, I suppose. In Dublin, yes. If you're in rural Kerry or something like this, and this thing comes around a country lane at you, there might be a bit of reversing and, you know, edging and nudging. Like, it, just don't underestimate how big it is. It's really wide and it's really long. And if you need the space, absolutely knock yourself out. You can see it really living very comfortably in the highways in the States, for example, by comparison. So just if you're curious about this car, and it should be starting to land now in Ireland where you can actually see it with your own eyes. I've no doubt it's still going to sell really, really well. You have a look at something like the XC90 from Volvo. Will this entice a customer from that end of vehicle into this because they want to go EV, because they're having a look at this car and going, yeah, Kia's not what I thought it was going to be like. And I think you will come away from it impressed with the interior. It's very smooth on the drive, but I just have to keep coming back to one, the price starting from €77,500 and the size. And if you're okay with both of those things, then I think you'll be a happy customer in your new EV9. Let me know what you think of the car. Any comments or thoughts or questions? Would you consider this if you have been in a more prestigious brand for a large SUV in the past? Would this tempt you into a Kia, perhaps for the first time? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.